Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 7th of January, comes to you from Sydney in Australia. Hot day here, been for a swim in the sea. It's just across the road from the flat, so it's really great to be here and avoiding the English winter. And I hear it's very cold in Europe at the moment. And it's about 5:30 in the morning UK time, 6:30 European time. So a lot of the European markets haven't really opened yet, and of course the US is closed. But let's take stock of what's happened yesterday, and it's approaching 5 in the afternoon my time here. So we see the dollar index. This is the daily chart. This was the target. We went below the cloud, we went sideways, and we crossed back below the cloud. This 96 level is really critical. And if we look at the short-term picture, we saw that we had this rise in Venezuela crisis, then this fallback. We are really in this range at the moment. The tightest short-term range is sort of 98.15, 98.75. So that is quite a tight range. But this pattern, move into the pattern, sideways, move out, is kind of what you worry about with this sort of structure. And the dollar this year was one of our calls for being bearish. Looking at Bitcoin, we see here we had quite a big sell-off. In yesterday's charts today, we talked about Bitcoin actually pulling back, and we see here on the 60-minute chart how that happened. And we can see here that we've got these upside targets, but we are hitting this resistance at around 94,400. So short term, still looking pretty good, but the medium term daily chart has been pretty bearish. We had this sell-off, this pullback, and a key thing here is if we fall through this 84,500 level, then we activate a downside target to 54. We are below the cloud on the medium term, and we hit right on resistance and fell away quite sharply. So that's not great good for Bitcoin. Of course, if you're trading Bitcoin, you want to be using the 1-minute charts with the targets, and you can be doing that on TradingView. So a lot of people are using the targets on TradingView. And that's a very good way to keep track as well. So the choice is yours. So then we take a look at the Nasdaq. We see here, I'm going to focus a bit on US stocks today. We see here we're still waiting for this upside target to be activated. We didn't really get the Santa rally on the Nasdaq. If we look at the short-term chart, we see here that mid-December we had a bit of a rally, we fell away, we haven't managed to make new highs. We do have upside targets on the 60-minute chart, but it is relatively weak, and we'll look at the Mag 7 in a minute, we are seeing that very few of them are really managing to make new highs. So key thing there is the Nasdaq is not making new highs. The broader US market, this is the S&P future, we are just testing new highs, but really fighting some resistance as well. But this is a better looking chart. So we are just seeing the Nasdaq is underperforming there. That's on the weekly chart. Now, if we look at some of the Mag 7 stocks, we've got Apple. They fell away quite heavily. This is on the 60-minute chart. So we see here downside target that was given in early December has now been met. We've got a new downside target given, and we're sort of halfway towards that target. And if we look at the daily chart for Apple, we see here this target now starting to look dubious. And this is the key thing about having the targets on time-based charts. We start to see a fall away in price. So we are still above the cloud, but really not managing to make new highs. And if we look at Amazon, similar picture here. In terms of not managing to make new highs, we have got upside targets, but we've got a lot of seesawing in price here. We're really just struggling at this sort of 240 level. That is a line of action. It is looking a little bit better now that we've got this move yesterday, and we have got these upside targets. And of course, we could look at the short-term targets as well. Google was a top performer last year. It was actually the best Mag 7 performer, and interestingly we've gone into this sort of almost ascending triangle pattern. Are we going to break out and activate this new upside target? This is still the most bullish of the Mag 7 charts, so really quite key there. We look at Microsoft, that's looking pretty weak. It's a double top really, failed to get through 550. We do have a big upside target, but there's new downside target below the cloud. That's kicking in. We can almost negate this upside target now and focus on where we're heading. And if we look at the short-term chart there, we can see that we've got just waiting on the 60-minute to activate a new downside target. So that's the key thing. You've got to look at the different time frames. Looking at Meta, this is also not looking great. We had a big falls back in October. That gave us a big downside target. We have had a bit of a recovery, still below the cloud, waiting to see if we activate this upside target, but just a very mixed picture, certainly not a strong one. And if we look at NVIDIA, they came out with news on autonomous cars this week, but it really hasn't moved the price. The price was down 0.5% yesterday. It's almost a case now that NVIDIA has to produce stellar news for it to make new highs. We've got a downside target in train. We are at risk of a lower high, lower low. Look at the 60-minute chart. That's where you're going to get the picture. We have the upside target that's been met with this downside target still hanging over us. Quite strong resistance there in the mid-190s. Just keep an eye on that. And if you're trading NVIDIA, you want to be looking at that 60-minute chart. And of course, in the Mag 7, we've got Tesla. That's also not looking great now. It was just breaking that 2024 high, but it's really struggled to hold it. This $500 level is pretty significant for Tesla. Even though we've got a big upside target, we are just starting to see some downward pressure there as well. Again, follow the shorter-term charts. Now, if we look at some of the other products, we look at gold. That has actually pulled back a bit, down 1%. But still a very bullish chart pushing to that target. If you're trading gold, you want to be watching the 60-minute charts and shorter. You can see here we're above the cloud, looking okay. Silver was up very sharply the day before yesterday, and then it's pulled back. So we are really seeing this seesaw action going on here with silver, and that's really showing up. But a bit of volatility around this level, but certainly not looking like a top. It's not rolling over like we've seen on some of those other charts. So really quite key there. US 10-year yields, we're seeing here, we're just waiting for that upside target on the 10-year. And that is, really that's on the bond chart itself. If we look at the bond yield chart, we're just waiting to see whether that upside target to 458 activates. We're already seeing on the 30-year chart that we do have activated upside targets. So we've talked about that in our calls that we've made this year. And if we look at lithium, this was one of my calls that we made for LSEG in the webinar. That's up 60% so far this year, 65% rise. And that was one of our calls. And if you want to see the calls, you just go to the Updata website. You can watch these all these LSEG videos, and of course register for charts today, morning call, etc. So you can do that at updata.co.uk. That's the place to go. And then if we just take a quick look at the energy mix, I'll be covering that in the morning call for clients shortly. If we just take a look at Brent crude, first of all, we look at the daily chart, down about 1.3% at the moment, struggling to activate that upside target, these downside targets into the 50s, 1 to 49.40. So really not looking great there. We are seeing US nat gas having a bit of recovery. So that's quite key. If you're trading crude oil, by the way, you want to be looking at the 1 minute. This data is all coming off LSEG, but it could easily be coming off Bloomberg, etc. So it's really up to you. All eyes will be on on European gas today for European gas traders. I'll be looking at that shortly in our morning call. We've got upside targets there, so that's going to be quite key. But the medium-term picture is still one of these downside targets in train. We've got to resolve all of those levels. So keep an eye on that and watch the targets. If you've not got Updata, watch them on TradingView or on your Bloomberg. So here are my crude oil targets on Bloomberg. Make sure you keep an eye on the targets, especially on those short-term targets if you're trading. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Bye for now.